Clouds move over Pontiac skies. Their silent thunder matches mine, and I know this feeling from long ago. I wondered, was it gone? Now I know. So when she calls, don't send her my way. When it hurts, you'll know it's the right thing. Michigan's in the view now. Keep your hands where I could see them. You took the words right out of my mouth when you knew that I would need them. What am I supposed to do now without you? Without you. It's unannounced like you'd expected among broke down brake lines and Motown records, and all that's left is a blind reflection. But you know what's coming and you regret it. So when she calls, don't send her my way. When it hurts most, it's the right thing. Michigan's in the view now. Keep your hands where I could see them. You took the words right out of my mouth when you knew that I would need them. What am I supposed to do now without you? Without you. Michigan's in the view now. Keep your hands where I could see them. Took the words right out of my mouth when you knew that I would need them. What am I supposed to do now without you? Without you.
Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Bangor. I am your worship associate leader this morning, Phyllis Havens of the Worship Committee, and we are so incredibly blessed to have such amazing skills and talents in our beloved community. One of them this morning is highlighted, or she is being highlighted, Molly Webster, who is our Director of Music. It was a while ago that worship had a conversation with Molly about coming to share how travel and her wanderlust to do so transformed her, and she is going to do that today with us. I hope maybe if you've done some traveling and satisfied some of that wanderlust that's inherent, I think, in all of us, you will have appreciated the images that you saw this morning, and there will be more to come. Some quick announcements. We have Spirit of Drumming, our UUSB drumming circle meeting after service this morning. In your order of service, there's also an announcement about a new group for older women that Ann Perkins would like to get off the ground, and she's having her first collecting meeting this Friday at her house. And last, I'd like to turn the mic over very briefly to Sue McKay, our Chair of Council, with a couple of quick comments.
Good morning. Hopefully, almost all of you in this room got a letter that I sent out by email on Thursday. If you haven't opened it, please do. If you didn't get it, please see me after the service. I want to tell you that the 3 delegates from UUSB to the UUA General Assembly, Lori Cartier, myself, and Sue Henry McKenzie, did a yeoman's job. And we have the results of the votes. And we will be doing up a report, probably sending it out in the e-news, so you can look forward to that. And if you liked Molly's presentation today, you too might be able to go on a great excursion somewhere, partially paid by UUSB from the next auction. Not auction, raffle. Thank you.
Molly and her introit.
Really quick note, all of these songs today have changed me and who I am as a person, so that's why they're being played. So just want you to know. Drink water, good posture, good lighting, good evening, your morning blossom, feeling a part of the process of living, a vision to do what you're here to, you're crying, not sleeping. I love you, good morning, I love you, you're singing, I see you, you're smiling and lying, you're there in a spiral. Drink water, good posture, good lighting, good evening, good morning, good morning, good morning, I see you.
Lighting our chalice this morning will be Tim Martin, one of our traveling members, bringing us home to love. We light this chalice today as a people dedicated to personal growth. May it burn away the oppressions we have been taught and glow instead with the humility of learning. May it reignite our dreams for a better world and kindle our joy for simple living. May its warmth extend out into the forgotten alleyways of exclusion and bring us home to love, to welcoming, and to all the challenges, the questions, and the blessings of this beautiful path to becoming a beloved community. Blessed be. Now you can either stand or sit as you wish. to join us in our opening hymn, number 203, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky, and we're doing verses 1, 2, and 3. Now I'm going to invite all the younger people and anyone else who would just like to join in the conversation from your seats. You don't have to come down. I didn't put a rug out. We got a mic? Yes, thank you. Well, welcome. We are talking this morning about what it means to be a traveler. So I guess maybe for the younger people, I guess my first question would be, have you ever gone on a trip with your parents? Yes, Cora. You went on a trip with mommy and daddy? So I was going to ask anybody who's done any kind of traveling, and I'll bring the mic over to you people. Yes, did you go on a trip? Yes, okay. So it was like, what did you like? What did you really love about something that you did or saw on your trip? And how did that make you feel? Happy, sad, worried, scared? What do you think? I'm just going to come around.
I can't remember anything.
Did you ever go on any long car ride? Yeah, where did you go? To Michigan. By car?
No, we went to New York.
Oh, New York by car. Have you ever been on a plane? Yeah, and did you go to Michigan by plane? Yes, okay. So how was that? It was good. All right. And you went with everybody? Yeah, okay. How was it for you? Good? Did you have fun? Yep. Did you see anything really special when you were there? Couple of years. Oh yeah. Okay, so you're looking forward to going someplace. Where are you going this summer? Back to Michigan. Bye. Airplane. All right. Cora, where did you go?
Acadia.
Acadia. And what did you see there?
I saw.
Did you see the ocean? Yeah. A crab claw on the beach. So sometimes we find and discover things that we don't have at home when we go looking for them. And you've got a really special mummy who can show you all kinds of special things from the ocean. So that's really good. What about you? Did you go anywhere?
Yeah.
Where did you go?
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. So I'm hoping you didn't drive. Did you go by airplane? Was that the first time you'd been on an airplane? No, you've been on an airplane before. Yeah, and what was special about the trip to Oklahoma? Grandma and grandpa? Yeah, yeah. So they have a house and you visited them in their house and they probably took you all kinds of places. Yeah. So that's a very, very different place to be than Maine, isn't it? You see very different things there. Well, I'm going to ask Connie because I know Connie is a grand adventurer, and she actually, I'll out you a little bit just to say, she was like with her family for a whole 6 months down under. So a few words about experiencing a completely different world.
Yes, living in Australia was amazing. We saw kangaroos every day, pretty much, and we also just learned about the coral reef. We scuba dived in the coral reef in the rainforest and saw panda bear. I mean, not panda bears, koala bears. And then we did a side trip to Japan and New Zealand and lots of other places. Yeah.
And I also know by everything that Connie shared on her Facebook blog that you did a lot of solo journeying as well. Did some solo journeying, some biking with some new people that you met. So, so I know many people travel and many people meet new people, which is also a really amazing thing because sometimes you meet new people that you wouldn't normally meet and they become friends. They teach you things that maybe you didn't know about where they live. And so I wondered if anybody was a little worried or scared in traveling. Did anybody feel a little worried or scared? I know you had your mom and dad with you. No? Well, sometimes when we travel alone, we kind of have a few of those moments where we're really, really unsure where to go, who to talk to, what to do. So it brings up a lot of issues of, can I know myself, and this is for the grown-ups, can I know myself well enough to be open to all that comes my way? Can I trust? Can I welcome new experiences? Can I feel comfortable with that and remain open-hearted? Because you usually wind up having some amazing adventures. I know Patty and Sue have had amazing adventures. And so I think I'll end it just by saying sometimes when we go new places, we do notice that we're feeling uncomfortable. And sometimes just opening up, keeping our hearts open and knowing it's all going to be okay and we're going to find our way and have some amazing new learnings. And that a lot is what Molly's going to share with us today, because for some of us who have done this, and I've been some of the places that Molly's been, and I'm going back and doing more adventuring at the end of the summer myself, back to Iceland. So this is a great, great opportunity. And it moves you in new and unexpected ways. And Molly's going to talk a little bit more about that. So I'm very excited that she's said yes to our invitation this morning. So you can all go back into your seats. Thank you for sharing.
As always, we light one last candle for all those joys and concerns that you have kept close in your hearts, and for all of those who don't have a community like ours in which to share. Blessed be.
We are a beloved, loving, compassionate community. We are also a very generous community. So at this time, I will ask the offertory plates to be passed. And we will notice that I think for the rest of this month of June, well, this probably is our last June service, collecting cash for the undesignated funds will be going to our UUSB food programs. Thank you.
Is life kicking up dust right now? Has life given up for you right now as well? Oh, was life giving us? I wake up and feel totally the same. I woke up the same as yesterday, with no news of any kind. The long morning, the wide afternoon, and then night could be coming soon too. But when it finally does, it's color of the longest day, as it's a shadow many know. And well, it's feeling pretty bad to me, but I don't think it goes on endlessly. But the horizon's lifting away from me. Endless.
John Donahue is an was an Irish poet. He passed in 2008 after writing some amazing poetry and prose, and this is from his book, To Bless the Space Between Us. For the Traveler. Every time you leave home, another road takes you into a world you were never in. New strangers on other paths await. New places that have never seen you will startle a little at your entry. Old places that you know well will pretend nothing changed since your last visit. When you travel, you find yourself alone in a different way. More attentive now to the self you bring along, your more subtle eye watching you abroad, and how what meets you touches that part of the heart that lies low at home. How you unexpectedly attune to the timbre in some voice, opening in conversation you want to take in, to where your longing has pressed hard enough inward on some unsaid dark, to create a crystal of insight you could not have known you needed to illuminate your way. When you travel, a new silence goes with you, and if you listen, you will hear what your heart would love to say.
The night my necklace fell off, you fluttered through my capillaries like a stone ball. I agree with your ideas, but not your tactics. So look me in the eye, be practical. When practically there's nothing left for me to say or do. It's only up to you. The live ladybug traps between my toes. Keep it together, man. We're all connected now. Stay composed. I agree with your ideas, but not your tactics. So look me in the eye, be practical. Practically, there's nothing left for me to say or do. It's only up to you. The current picture, the metronome, I don't know what this is, but it's not my home. I thought that we were falling in love, but we weren't.
Scream fast, go fast. So when I was growing up, I traveled a fair bit, definitely a significant amount compared to my classmates, and for my hometown in northern, very rural Maine. Trips included annual, sometimes biannual, winter road trips to Florida to visit my nanny or to Maine in the summers after we had made the move to Florida. Trips to Canada to pick strawberries and for short vacations were a fairly common occurrence, living so close to the border. Trip to Colorado while in high school with a road trip back to Maine rounded out my travel log prior to moving out on my own at 17 and moving back to Maine for my senior year of high school. After graduation, I began college, and you know that old adage, all who wander are not lost. Not true in my case. I did miserably that first year, and after failing out, essentially, as an anthropology major, I know, weird, I took some time off. I worked both at a job and on myself, and I got into music school as a result. This ultimately afforded me many of my collegiate travel experiences throughout New England and Canada with the university singers. I was also in a relationship throughout college with someone I had known since basically kindergarten, and while supportive to a very specific and finite extent, it was suffocating. And though we did travel to Florida a few times and to Canada fairly frequently, experience I had had several times over by this point, not to sound ungrateful. But he seemed to value the collecting of material objects over the collecting of experiences. This was something I learned to live with and settle for 12 years. My little brother lived with us from the time he was 14, I was 22, until he was 21 and I was 29. Obviously, I love my brother. And I was so happy to have him in my life, but this only seemed to fuel my ability to make excuses or to have others make excuses for me as to why I couldn't do the things like study abroad and travel more extensively, which is absolutely what I longed for, but I think maybe ultimately like I wasn't truly ready with financial constraints, home obligations, double majors, master's degrees, you know, all those things. But that relationship finally ended and I moved out on my own. And it was exhilarating and scary, and I was proud of myself. I had a great group of friends, and there were several years there where I was finding myself again, and though I was seen and understood I was struggling financially and choices I was making were beginning to burn me out professionally, physically, and mentally. My good friend and I did a few annual trips to Florida to visit my mom and a friend, but other than that, my Wanderlust took a back seat, and I went from one codependent relationship to several, but they were a lot happier. I eventually made some big life changes. I was finally afforded the opportunity to travel, and more importantly, I was finally ready for that level of personal growth, and I welcomed it with open arms. And this is where this Icelandic saying, "Þetta reddast," comes into play. It will all work out, right? Do the right things will come, or that's what I think. In 2019, I applied for and received a scholarship to attend the Association for Unitarian Universalist Music Ministries conference in Denver, Colorado. This church was instrumental in affording me what was truly the catalyst to the start of my journey of self-discovery through solo travel. I knew no one there. I was forced into new situations personally, professionally, and I stepped well outside of my comfort zone. It was exhilarating and scary, and I was proud of myself. I took public transportation daily to the conference and throughout Denver, really. I tour rode a couple of vehicles, traveled around to some of the parks, and I mostly just cried in gratitude at the beauty and the awe that surrounded me. It was really stunning and really special. And I also talked to some mountain goats, which you may have seen on that first in-gathering slide here. Later that summer, in 2019, I went to Cancun, Mexico, in August. Why August? I don't know. But I went with a good friend, and it was an absolute mess, as you can imagine, but it was great. And I learned more about myself, and we took public transportation there too, but we're not going to talk about that. The resort was all-inclusive, but we literally, I think, had like $60 between us. So it was definitely exhilarating and marginally scary. And I don't know if I'd say I was proud of myself, but it absolutely forced me to step outside of my comfort zone. In January of 2020, I went to Florida with my mom, and I road tripped to New Orleans. We loved it. I planned the whole thing. It was fantastic. In March of 2020, I went to Florida again and was actually in Miami when the world shut down. So things became much clearer for all of us, I think, during that first year of COVID specifically. We really embraced the fact that life was short and we needed to do the things that made us, us. These trips all solidified the fact that travel was attainable, that I could make it a priority, and that I loved the researching and planning of it all, and I was kind of good at it. And most importantly, though, these trips showed me that I didn't need to wait on anyone to do the things that I wanted to do. I could absolutely have these experiences myself and for myself, and honestly enjoy them to an extent that I hadn't been able to in the past when I was worrying about others. So my first really big trip was to Iceland in 2021, and I camped around the ring road. So I'm going to show you what a map of that looks like. So these are some of the stops, not all of them, obviously, but these are some of the stops. I did a ton of research, and you'll notice that I chose to drive in all the places that I travel to. And firstly, this is for the freedom and intentional immersion that it provides, but also I love driving, right? It's where I do my best and most vulnerable thinking and processing. To drive in a foreign place and sing my favorite songs at the top of my lungs, but healthfully, is like no other therapy I have found. This love of road trips was instilled early by my parents, and it is absolutely a nostalgic comfort for me. One of the most freeing things about this trip to Iceland, and any trip to Iceland, is the fact that I can only roughly plan things in advance. Most campgrounds don't accept reservations, so the flexibility this provided, though overwhelming at first, was a great lesson for me and allowed me the freedom and flexibility to relax into the moment and to adapt and change plans. I tend to be incredibly itinerary focused even when on vacation, looking toward what kind of my next thing is. Oh, I'm going here next, check, right? So this was great. I had some amazing experiences. That's me arriving. I went to both the Blue Lagoon and Mývatn on the first trip. Hot pools are one of my favorite things. I've always been a water baby, and the sheer number and variety of hot pools and swimming opportunities for relaxing or cold plunging is like nothing else. I had my first of 3 so far visits to the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. And I found one of my favorite campsites. And I also found one of my favorite churches. You can see it there. I found out the hard way that it is absolutely true that all roads are not paved in Iceland. I ended up on this, because I didn't plan correctly. I ended up on this, which was about 2 hours of traveling on what was essentially a logging road. Like, this is a pretty mild, it was something, and I had a little tiny Fiat 500. So it was fun. But finally, I made it back to the pavement, right? We make it. It was also beautiful. So, what are you gonna do? And then there's waterfalls, right? Always, all the time. You can see a few of them here. And I went camping on the ocean near the Arctic Circle, and I slept in my tiny car when it was far too cold. You can see that there. When it was far too cold, I went whale watching in Húsavík, and I saw several humpbacked whales, which was really cool. I went camping in a national park in the shadow of Iceland's tallest mountain. You can see that over there. I stayed at a guest house with these lovely animals. They were great. I was so happy to see that dog and cat, and the cat slept with me all night, which was great. Human interaction, no thank you. Animals, let's go. I need that. I saw a lot of Game of Thrones sites. That's something that's common throughout my travels. I love Game of Thrones. And lots of sheep butts. There are always sheep because it's open range, so they just are everywhere, but it's normally they're walking away, so they have these huge poofy rear ends that are just hilarious. I went to Vik and Reynisfjara, which is one of the many black sand beaches, probably the most popular one that you've seen. I saw puffins for the first time. I didn't think I was going to be able to, but I did. I saw the midnight sun was obviously a thing. This is going to start playing music, but I want you to kind of also don't drive distracted and don't drive while you're filming things. But I think it's going to play music, so I'll. But this is essentially what my life was. I went into Thakgil, which is about 15 kilometers into the interior of Iceland. And I went camping, and it was literal all off-road trucks. All 4x4s, and I had my Fiat 500, and I pulled up to the campsite, and like everyone turned and looked at me because I was in a car that's as big as my body, right? So it was something, but this is, you can just hear it from here. But that was the road, and this is me singing. It's just, so, really, really pretty, but this was a very cool experience. I had to leave super early in the morning because I had to go to Reykjavik to be tested for COVID before I could fly home the next day. So that was fun, but this was a fantastic experience. And I learned a ton about myself during this first international trip alone. And perhaps more importantly, I learned that I really like my own company. I think that a lot of it was just those tiny little awkward, embarrassing encounters that I, as an introvert, I know who would have thought that, I just still think about. Not understanding a question that's being asked to me and having them repeat it 3 times, not yielding in a roundabout, and having a local get really angry, little things like that. And every time one of them happens while traveling, I'm just so humbled by the forced opportunity for discomfort and growth that those small experiences allow. They just hit different when you're in a foreign place, when you're laid bare and vulnerable. After not being able to stop thinking about my previous trip, I planned another one for June of 2022. I figured the reason I thought about it daily was because it was my first big international trip by myself, and that another trip would get it out of my system. Spoiler alert, it did not. Absolutely did not. Again, I kind of had a loose plan with a few accommodations settled, but my luggage was left in Boston, so I had to quickly adapt those plans from the start. I had naively planned to camp again, but it was June in Iceland, and it was cold and it was windy, and at one point I was in my tent and it just laid flat down on me. So I slept in my incredibly tiny car that night as well, a seemingly common occurrence at this point for me in my travels. I ventured up north to Akureyri, one of my favorite towns, and I went to a stunning new hot pool, which is a forest lagoon. Also, they have heart stoplights. It's very cool. I went to the Snæfellsnes Peninsula again because I love it, and it was stunning. There was lupin everywhere, everywhere. And I saw an Arctic fox, which was really cool as well. And I kind of did more of the like touristy things this time, like more of Thingvellir National Park, the Golden Circle, and a lot of the waterfalls and stuff that I hadn't done on that first trip. But it wasn't for me. I have found that I am a very solo traveler. So here you can see one of the famous waterfalls with all the people everywhere around it. And this was the point that I was like, nope, I cannot. And so I was able to pivot away from that. And I was able to find this lovely waterfall, and no one was there for the hour and a half, 2 hours that I spent just grounding and sitting and being. Also, I played the mud, you can see, as evidenced by that. One of my favorite things is just being able to sit silently and in nature and to ground, and I was able to do a bunch on this specific trip, from laying in a field in the Snæfellsjökull National Park to that waterfall, to sitting on Reynisfjara beach for hours. I took a ferry to the Westman Islands, and I stayed over there for the summer solstice, and it was super windy and foggy and rainy, classic, but it was stunning. And I saw 2 beluga whales that are now they're in the bay there, which is very cool. Saw a bunch of puffins. It was great. That was a little cabin I stayed in. It's awesome. And then I headed back west, and I went to a cat cafe that I had wanted to go to the last time I was there, and I got my first tattoo, which is a Vegvisir, which is a runic compass with a spiral. I added that. And it's kind of in an effort to depict that we are constantly growing and evolving and having this compass. There you go. Then, in August of 2020, this was a professional development opportunity that was partially afforded to me by UUSB and the generosity of the lovely late Judy Boothby and Phyllis Havens from Guild. This professional development was paired with a week-long trip around Ireland. So, this is it was a Sing Ireland choral conducting clinic that I was a part of. People from all over the world, Philippines, Germany, Finland, Canada, Brazil, England. I learned and conducted amazing music with amazing musicians, and I was forced to put myself into situations with my art and craft and job and love that opened me up to criticism, though constructive. It was a full week of constantly being placed in new and vulnerable situations. I learned a lot, met some amazing people, and grew as a musician, traveler, and person. I then was able to take the next week to travel around the country, and I had planned to do a bunch of tours and public transportation, but I got COVID. So I spent much of my time with myself, which, as we know by this point, is probably preferred, honestly. The entire first week was spent in Limerick at the conference, but we had a free day where we were able to go into the city and sightsee and hang out, so that's some of that there. I learned to kind of be okay on the wrong side of the road after some iffy situations on back roads. As a side note, don't go on back roads in Ireland, or probably Scotland or England, I would assume. I went to the Dingle Peninsula, which was stunning, saw some cool Star Wars spots, some Game of Thrones spots as well, filming spots. I went to the Gap of Dunlow, which again is about this wide, and I got a flat tire. So adapting, right? Learning and adapting. I sat there for about 3 hours, and then I got a cool side quest to Killarney, where I got to hang out, which was not all bad. It was pretty fun. And then I had probably like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I stayed in a treehouse at the top of St. Patrick's Hill in Cork City. So huge hill, and I stayed in this lovely treehouse, and it was amazing. You can see some of the views there. It was awesome. And Northern Ireland, I love Northern Ireland. I think that that's where I would go back to. Giant's Causeway, and I got to see, again, a lot of Game of Thrones filming locations and go interact with some local cows, which you can see there. They would not move. Having COVID definitely forced me to adapt and ensure that I was keeping myself and others safe, and I feel like I missed out a bit, both from not being able to do all that I wanted, but also because a large chunk of time I didn't feel super great. Right? But I had a lot of public transportation the first leg of the journey before I had COVID that had some delays and snafus, all of these things that we kind of learned to be okay with as we're traveling. All of the roundabouts everywhere, horrible, humbling. 5 minutes in the car, I stalled in a roundabout, and it was frantic. But overall, it was 2 weeks of pushing myself far outside of my comfort zone. In the upper left, it's a beach. It's a little like lookout place. Yes, yeah, it's all like farmland. That's where those cows live. And then this was my most recent trip, and probably the one that I kind of hold closest to my heart, just because of some of the experiences I had, but it could be because they're the most recent as well. I had really great weather for February in Iceland, and it really kind of is like Maine, lots of rain, lots of sun, snow in the space of 20 minutes. But it was upper 30s, lower 40s the entire time I was there. Didn't wear my bean boots once, except on the plane, regret. But it was great, and those are some things that I saw. And you guessed it, I went to Snæfellsnes again, but it was winter this time, so it's different. I stayed at a guest house that had their own hot pool, and I stayed in it for like 7 hours, till well past midnight, and it was one of the best things ever. It was great. hot pool. I was able to explore some peninsulas in western and northern Iceland that I hadn't seen before. Northern Lights, got to see them. It was awesome. I was worried that I wouldn't get the chance with the forecast, but after adjusting my plans, I saw them 3 nights in a row in 3 different locations, and it was amazing. I saw one of the most insane sunsets of my life. I sat on a mountain, you saw some of that in the video actually. Sat on a mountain behind my hotel for like 45 minutes in the wind and cold and rain, and it was one of the most surreal and stunning experiences I have had to date. Went to several new hot pools and I loved them. I swam in the ocean in February. I know. I spent the night in Reykjavik and I went to some restaurants and bars and hung out with some locals, another opportunity for growth and immersion. And as I've said, I'm a pretty solo traveler, so this was definitely stepping outside of the box for me. And I quite honestly feel I'm the closest to being the best version of myself when I'm traveling and camping surrounded by nature. And that's the pull. I feel the most myself when I'm learning and growing, singing my favorite songs in the car, on a road I've never been on, and being awkward in social interactions, and swimming in hot pools in the ocean and partaking in culture that is ancient and fascinating. With each and every trip I take, I am above all grateful for the opportunity to have these experiences and that I am able to allow myself these experiences. I've always been an advocate for affording others the opportunity and avenues for personal growth, but at times in my own life, that was the farthest thing from my mind. What began as Wanderlust, this desire to travel, has grown into a literal pining ache for it, farewell. And specifically Iceland. I clearly have yet to find or glean what I meant to from that remote island in the northern Atlantic Ocean near the Arctic Circle. I think about it constantly. I challenge myself to find another place that holds such magnetism for me. I see you, Iceland, and I raise you, Scotland, or Norway, or Croatia, right? I actually have a friend who, when I tell him I'm planning another trip to Iceland, which I am, he always says, Molly, there are other places to go. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go there too. Thank you and blessed be. Is this what I do? No.
I'll have to say, in just an aside, that as I and a friend planned our trip at the end of August to do the ring road around Iceland, Molly's sitting down with us for several hours and helping us set it all up and where we should be and what we should see just has been amazing. So I can't wait, although I'm scared to death. We are now going to be doing our closing hymn. Is that going to work? You want to do just Chalison? Okay. We were doing Blue Boat Home, so, but I will read the final piece from John Donahue's The Traveler. And Tim can extinguish the chalice. A journey can become a sacred thing. Make sure, before you go, to take the time to bless your going forth, to free your heart of ballast, so that the compass of your soul might direct you toward the territories of spirit, where you will discover more of your hidden life and the urgencies that deserve to claim you. May you travel in an awakened way, gathered wisely into your inner ground, that you may not waste the invitations which wait along the way to transform you. May you travel safely, arrive refreshed, and live your time away to its fullest. Return home more enriched and free to balance the gifts of days which call you. Blessed be. Join